One of my most popular concepts of all time was my theory on invisible scripts. These are the scripts that almost guide our lives, but they are so deeply held that they're almost invisible to us. For example, I should buy a house. That's an invisible script that is so deeply embedded in our culture that we almost don't realize it's an option or it's an assumption. How about getting a technical degree is better than a liberal arts degree? For many engineers, that is an invisible script to them. Or how about I should be married by 30? Another invisible script that's deeply taught to us for decades and generations. Now, there can be some positive invisible scripts. When I was growing up, education was highly valued. So it's like education is prized above almost anything else. My family didn't have a lot of money, but anytime there was some educational expense, my parents would somehow scrimp and pinch to pay for that. I think that's a really positive invisible script. But there are also a lot of negative ones. For example, in Indian culture, only doctors or engineers are really the profession to go after. All right? My mom still asks me, hey, are you sure you don't want to be a doctor? I'm like, I think that ship has sailed. P.S. I don't even think I can get into medical school if I tried. So, invisible scripts can be highly pernicious to us. They're almost like an organism lives inside us, invisibly guiding us to a certain destination. And we don't even know that this organism lives inside us. In fact, we may not even want to go to that destination. But somehow it's so deep inside us that we don't even acknowledge it's there. So the first step when it comes to managing your invisible scripts is to actually discover what they are. So how do you discover your invisible scripts? If you were to ask yourself, what are my invisible scripts? Could you write them out? I have hundreds and hundreds of examples on my blog, so if you search for Invisible Scripts Ramit, you will find lots and lots of comments of other people actually acknowledging their invisible scripts. It's actually quite powerful. But what can you do to acknowledge yours? The first step is to say, what's really important in my life? And you can even narrow it down. What's really important to me in the next year or two? For a lot of people, it might be finding a romantic partner, or getting a different job, or starting to be more financially secure. Okay? Whatever it may be, it could be even having more fun. I want to go out 4 times a week. Great. So if that's the case, the next step is to say, who are the types of people that do that? What are the types of people that go out 4 times a week? Again, no judgment whatsoever. What are the types of people that make a little bit more money than I do, or work at the kind of job I want to work at? Now we're going to start to get really, really interesting, because our own psychological defense mechanisms are going to come up. Next, you're going to ask yourself, what's the difference between the people who have those things that I want and me? Write those assumptions down, and then I want you to twist that on its head and say, what if those assumptions are not true? For example, if you think to yourself, I want to go out 4 times a week, I hardly go out at all right now, and then you say, what type of people do that? Oh, people who wear Ed Hardy shirts and they buy bottle service in clubs, they suck. So you're saying I have to hang out with a bunch of idiots and spend $1,000 a night to go out? Okay, whoa, 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 whoa. That is a huge assumption. We call that an extreme reach barrier, because you're immediately assuming that to achieve something, you have to jump to the extremes. That's not necessarily true. No one said you have to be like that. There are plenty of other types of people who go out a lot, and you don't have to act like them. Same thing is true. Let's say you want to lose 15 pounds. The extreme reach barrier is what? It's to say, oh, Ramit, so you're saying I have to work out 7 days a week for 2 hours a day at the gym? No. Nobody's saying that at all. So I want you to write down these assumptions and then ask yourself, what if we could just take these away? There's another thing you want to be aware of. We call it the natural fallacy. Oh, he's just a natural. He went to that school, or he lives in that city. Oh, I could never do that. I'm not a natural like that. Well, as we know from a lot of the other frameworks we've been through in this program, naturals are very, very rare. Instead, what you think is a natural typically is the result of years and years of micro decisions and a lot of luck. And then another fallacy I want to point out, and that is, it's always the way it's been done. This is one of the deepest held invisible scripts. The example I gave you is I should be married by 30. That's a classic example because for much of history, people were married much younger than 30. So we've been passed these phrases, these code words by our parents and grandparents and even great-grandparents. Difficult to even step outside that box. Let me give you a few other examples of it's always been done this way. I'm 27. I should have my own apartment by now. Online dating is for weirdos. I should travel more. I should work harder. That's an invisible script. You think other people in Europe use those same words? A little different, a little different. I should buy a house. Perhaps one of the deepest held invisible scripts, one that I'm very, very critical of if you've read my book. You know, I had a friend of mine who lost a lot of weight. She got really fit, and her friends would naturally see her. She looked incredible, and they would say, how'd you do it? Like, what are you eating? And she would start to tell them. She would say, oh, well, I cut back on this, and I'm doing this, and blah, blah, blah. And what was the first thing they said? Something like this. Oh, well, I can't cut back on bread. I'm Asian. I love rice. No joke. That is a classic extreme reach barrier, as well as one based on it's always been done this way. So my parents fed me rice. I love rice. You're saying that I could never eat rice again? I can't do that. Forget this. So I actually advised her to stop telling them her whole story and ask more questions. Stop giving her recipes and instead ask them why they're curious. Totally change the dynamic of getting people to actually change their diet. Here's your action step for today. I want you to discover at least 3 of your own invisible scripts. Now, this is not easy. It takes a lot of probing. It takes a lot of interrogating yourself. It may take a while. For me to come up with my top 5 or top 10 invisible scripts took me several months. I was working on the invisible scripts concept for over a year before I ever wrote about it on my site. So this is what I want you to do. I want you to take the action steps and the principles I outlined a couple of minutes ago. I want you to ask yourself, what is it that I want in the next 12 to 18 months? A romantic partner, to be more healthy, have better financial control, a different career, etc. What's stopping me from that? Who are the types of people who have that? What are their criteria? Manage your barriers, your extreme reach barriers, your fallacies. Write them all down. Write these assumptions down. You will discover some deeply held invisible scripts that you never even knew you had. These are things that have often been guiding your decisions for years and years. Like I said, a little organism attached itself to your brain, and it's almost been whispering in your ear quietly. You don't even know that it's there. But now you're going to root it out. And if you like it, you can let it stay there. In fact, there are some very positive invisible scripts. I'm going to challenge you to also find 3 positive invisible scripts. Like mine was education. You may not have a lot of money, but if it's for education, find a way, right? How did that affect me, by the way? When I applied to a bunch of schools, I actually didn't have enough money really to send the $50 for each application. So instead I just put a note, hey, listen, times are a little tough. If you need me to send the money, I'll find a way. But if not, I hope you can accept this application. That was almost a positive person whispering in my ear saying, you know what? If it relates to education, you'll find a way. So that was a very positive one. I want you to find 3 negative invisible scripts, 3 positive invisible scripts. And then you can decide, do I want to keep these scripts or do I want to wipe them away from ever affecting me again? This exercise alone, discovering your negative and positive invisible scripts, can be one of the most powerful ones you ever do. Give it a shot.